Okay guys, I am back. This is our second lesson video today, and we just talked in the first lesson video about how if we were to multiply a plus b by a squared minus ab plus b squared, we ended up with a cubed plus b cubed. So taking that in reverse, now we have a formula to factor a cubed plus b cubed into this binomial multiplied by that trinomial. That is our sum of cubes factoring formula. And similarly, we also have a difference of cubes factoring formula that you can see here. You are expected to memorize these formulas. Something that I've learned that I think makes it a little bit easier to remember these formulas is an acronym called SOAP. And I'm going to explain SOAP to you. So right here you have plus, and the first sign in your answer, the factored forms answer, is a plus, so that is the same sign, S for same. Well, down here we have minus, and we start with a minus, so S for same. Now the next sign you come across, when it was plus, it changed to minus, and when it was minus, it changed to plus. So O for opposite. So we have the same sign, next we have the opposite sign, and then you'll notice the last sign along the way is always positive. So we have AP for always positive. That doesn't help us remember every single thing about the formula, but at least it will help us keep the signs straight. So jot those down and work on committing those formulas to memory. And we're going to work through some examples. So the directions say factor completely. And problem number 1 wants us to factor 27x cubed plus 125. Let's see if it fits into one of these two formulas. Is it a sum or a difference? Well, I see a plus sign, so it's a sum. Is it a sum of cubes? Do we have perfect cubes? Well, 27x cubed is the same as 3x all cubed, and 125 is the same as 5 cubed, so we do have a perfect cube plus a perfect cube. So you could think of 3x as your A, and you could think of 5 as your B, and use those in the factoring formulas that we have written above. So the first factor will be A plus B, and that is 3x plus 5. And the second factor will be A squared, so square the 3x, that's 9x squared, minus for the opposite sign. Now multiply A times B, so 3x times 5, and that's 15x. And then plus for always positive. And then the last part is B squared, so that would be 5 squared, which is 25. And even though we have a quadratic expression here, it might be tempting to think that that factors further, but I think you'll find it doesn't. If it did, there would probably be a different formula that we were using. So there we go. We've used the sum of cubes formula to factor number 1. Let's take a look at number 2. Okay, we do have a sum, but we don't have perfect cubes. However, don't forget when you see the phrase factor completely, that's kind of a hint with the word completely that there may be multiple factoring steps involved in the problem. And the first factoring step you always want to think about is a greatest common factor. So when you look at both of these terms, what could you factor out of both? And I would say negative 2 d squared would be a wise thing to try. If you factor negative 2d squared out of the first one, you have d cubed left. And then because you factored out the negative, you have minus. And then from factoring negative 2d squared out of the second one, you have 125. Now look at the quantity in parentheses and ask yourself, is that a sum or difference of cubes? And it is a difference because we have minus, and d cubed is a perfect cube, and 125 is a perfect cube, so we do have a difference of cubes. So we can use the difference of cubes factoring formula, where in the formula A will be our d, and B will be 5, since 5 squared is 125. I'm just going to rewrite this as d cubed minus 5 cubed. Okay, so now our job is to use the formula to factor d cubed minus 5 cubed. So using the difference of cubes formula, the first part was a minus b, so for us that will be d minus 5. And the second part was a squared, so that will be d squared, plus for the opposite sign. And then the next part of the formula is a times b, so that will be 5 times d, and then plus for always positive. And then the last part is b squared, and for us that will be 5 squared, so 25. So make sure you still have the negative 2d squared as part of your answer. And there's the completely factored form for that one. So next I'm going to show you 4 more practice problems. So I believe you should pause the video and work these out, and then you can resume the video and check your answers. And I'm also going to pause and work them out. So what you'll see next is all the answers up on the screen at the same time. So now's a good time to pause if you don't want that the answers to show. Okie dokie, now we see all of the answers. And so just check your work and look back at the steps if you need to. Ask for help if you need to. Mrs. Gallagher can help you with this. Your classmates can help you. And that takes care of part 2 of our lesson. And in part 3, we're going to look at another factoring technique as well as try a couple of extension problems.